This is Tom Robleski, the political editor of the Staten Island Advance. We're here today with GOP consultant Gerry O'Brien from Brooklyn. How are you, sir?
I'm good.
Thank you very much for joining us. Obviously, the congressional race for Congressman Facella's seat, the big news here. I mean, can you give us a little bit of the Brooklyn perspective on things? A lot of folks from Staten Island, sometimes maybe Brooklyn side gets overlooked a little bit.
Well, right now, everything's in a state of flux. You know, the Conservative Party nomination is still up for grabs. Staten Island conservatives gone with McMahon. Brooklyn conservatives are going with Frank Powers, the Republican candidate. And it looks like it's going to be up to Mike Long, the state Conservative Party chairman, to make the call. And I think he's already made it clear that he's going to go with Frank Powers.
And the concern about McMahon, obviously, is the pro-choice stand on abortion, which is something that some people take, to heart more, but also compounded with that congestion pricing support and the vote in favor of property taxes, all of which McMahon has defended by saying, well, at the time I thought this was the right thing to do, but this is really the strike one, strike two, and strike three that's hurting him with conservatives, right?
I agree, and I think also there are already questions about where he really stands on the war in Iraq, whether he's for a pullout, whether he's not, whether he supports the continuation of an American presence there, and I think that is what hurt him with conservatives. And I think it's also going to hurt him very badly in the Democratic primary.
Let's talk a little bit about the Democratic, because most people here would favor him in a Democratic primary. He's running against Steve Harrison, of course, who ran in '06 as well. But from what you're saying, sometimes there's a lot of things that need to be thought through, even in terms of a Democratic primary.
Well, primaries tend to be dominated by the ideological center of gravity in that party. And in a Democratic primary, even on Staten Island and in Bay Ridge and Bensonhurst, Brooklyn, people somewhat to the left, if not outright liberals, have much more of a role in Democratic Party primaries, principally because it's a very small percentage of voters who are coming out to vote. It could be as low as 15 or 20%. And I think that those types of voters who are moderate to liberal Democrats here on Staten Island and in Brooklyn will be suspicious of McMahon, not just about the war in general, but also they're suspicious that he even wanted the Conservative Party nomination this time and that he's run with the Conservative Party nomination for city council for many, many years. That is the equivalent. I mean, a Democrat running with Conservative Party backing to a lot of rank and file Democrats is the equivalent, if you were in a room full of Republican conservatives, of a Republican running with the Socialist Workers' Party. It is ideologically out of touch with the mainstream of the party. When you consider how few people will likely come out and vote in a September Democratic primary, it could be a real problem for McMahon. Let's
talk a little bit about the Republican side of the ball. You've already talked about Frank Powers. He's being challenged by Dr. Jamshad Wyne in the GOP primary. I mean, how do you view that? Two guys who both seem to have some independent wealth to help finance a campaign. The Republican Party on Staten Island had no luck on its own, sort of enticing one of its elected officials to run for this seat, even though it's the pinnacle of the profession.
Well, I'll tell you, I don't know either candidate. I don't think I've met either candidate. They both have good reputations. They're both dedicated Republicans, and each has certainly their own merits for being a candidate for office. But I'll tell you the dirty little secret about the Republican nomination in this race. They won't admit it, but there are scores of people out there backing both candidates who really wish that they would both withdraw from the race, decline their petitions once they're submitted to the Board of Elections, and allow the party to choose someone else.
But even before Frank Powers was in the race, they went down the list of every. It's like when you make a coaching change in sports. It's like, okay, well, we'll get rid of this guy, but who are we going to bring in? So if everybody from Dan Donovan and Andy Lanza on down the line refused before Frank Powers came in, and Frank Powers sort of came in at the last minute saying, okay, this is all looking pretty shaky. I'll take it on. Well, so who's the candidate who's waiting for them to get out? Is there anybody?
I don't know, but I think there are certainly more than enough qualified Republican men and women that could be the congressional candidate and be the member of Congress for this district. I think one of the problems we've had in the Republican Party on Staten Island and in other parts of New York State is we've had a very much top-down control of the party to the point that a number of rank-and-file people and past and potential candidates have felt that their opinions and their thoughts really aren't wanted, and as a result, they don't bother to get involved anymore. And, you know, quite frankly, one of the reasons that some Republicans were reluctant to throw their hat in the ring is that there was word of mouth going around that this whole thing would eventually resolve itself and Vito would end up still being a candidate.
Right.
And I think there are certainly people close to Vito who would like to have seen that happen, may still like to see that happen. Ain't going to happen. Right. And maybe now that a little time has elapsed since Vito made his decision to retire, has passed, some of these other potential candidates might step forward if the party said, you know, Dr. Wyne and Frank Powers are not going to be the candidate. We've got 72 hours to find somebody. Let's sit down, meet with us, tell us why you want to run. You know, we can get behind you.